What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Brett Allan Show, a pop culture podcast where we interview your favorite actors from film, television, music, comedy, and more, wherever pop culture hangs out. And today we have a very special guest. We are chatting with actor Trae Romano, and I'm excited because he is a part of this fantastic show on Stargirl, the CW. If you haven't seen it yet, crawl out from under the rock and watch this show. We've had other cast members as well, but this is a fun show. And he's had a lot of other great projects as well. And we're going to talk about that and much more. Trae, welcome into the show. It's great to have you here today.
Thanks so much for having me, man. I'm excited.
Yes, well, you are on Stargirl, and we've had other cast members from the show before. So I'm excited to talk about your character, Mike Dugan, which is a lot of fun. Let's talk about the show for those listeners who may not have had the chance to watch yet, about your character and sort of how you came to be a part of the project.
Yeah, well, Mike's character, is the stepbrother of Courtney, who's the main character, who eventually becomes Stargirl. And the way the character was originally proposed to me, when Jeff called me, when I actually got the role, he was like, it's kind of like the 80s annoying brother that every, the trademark annoying brother character. And then the number one thing that he said, which was actually really interesting that I still remember, is that he barely really talked about season one before we got into it. He specifically talked about season two, because he was like, this is your character for season one, but then it kind of changes into something else for the second season. So that was exciting for me, like right off the bat, because I knew my character was going to change. So when I got the first script and, I was reading for like the audition and everything, I thought it was just like, a comedy pilot with a little bit of drama mixed in there. So I had no idea what I was getting into, right? And like, I didn't know this was going to be a superhero show. I didn't know Luke Wilson was in it. I didn't know anything, So like when he called me, I found out all that stuff, and it was just, I was just super excited to get into it. And everyone's always like, did you read the comics before like you started? And I was like, I did not even know this existed, like, up until like 2 weeks before I started shooting. But as we went along and I got closer with Jeff, and I started reading the comics, and then I kind of saw the parallels between his character that he wrote, when he was younger to now. But yeah, it's been a great ride so far. And, Mike's character, you slowly begin to, you really kind of start to feel for him in the second season, which is kind of what they're aiming for. I always say that, like Mike's character, every episode, like you're kind of like tearing back the layers of like an onion. You're always just kind of finding out more about him. He's a lot deeper than, what you see with the naked eye, I guess. But yeah, like that's, I guess that's probably the best that I can describe it for now, for anyone who hasn't watched it. Yeah.
Yes, it's a lot of fun. And again, it's all streaming right now, which is the way we watch, I think, most things these days. I have a question for you, because I've had other actors mention this, and you just alluded to the fact that when you auditioned, you didn't really know what you were auditioning for.
Mhm.
As an actor, does that challenge you even more to dig deep into that creative space and try and figure out, because obviously, well, I don't know, are they, when they give you a script, let me back up a little bit. When they give you a script, is that script sort of like a shape of the character that you might play, or is it something completely different? Like, how do you get into that creative space, Trae, when you don't really know, like, what you're actually going to be doing?
Well, it actually, it clearly depends on the project, of course. Some scripts, some projects give you dummy sides that have nothing to do, with the script at all. And then, call back, etc. Then you get into the real content. But with this, it was actually a scene from episode one of the pilot, and then it was a scene from episode 9 where it was a little bit more dramatic. And as an actor, it doesn't really affect me personally. Actually, I almost kind of like worked myself out of that, like as an actor, because coming into this show, I was coming off of like an 8 month process of this movie that I was going to do. And it was just like draining, and it was tiring, it was exhausting. And, like I was literally just like, when I filmed this audition specifically, I remember I was like, I'm just going to go for it. Like I tend to, I started with comedy. I started with, improv. I started with all that stuff. And, I always tend to like to add like some stuff in, just like throw it in there. And like when you have a script that you don't really know what it's connected to, you have more creative control because you can bring whatever you want to this, because you always have the excuse for, oh, I didn't know it was a Spielberg movie, or I didn't know it was a Star Wars movie, right? Like, you always have that kind of in the back of your head. So, when Jeff called me, he was like, actually, the improv that you added at the end got you the role. And I was like, that's actually, that's enlightening to me, like as an actor, because sometimes you think like maybe they won't like this, maybe they won't da 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 da. And even your agents are like, like maybe you should just keep that stuff out, right? And then like something like that comes along where I literally was at the point where I was like, I just don't care anymore. And then it was a beautiful thing because I ended up getting the role. But yeah, I really think that it varies for everyone. Like I know, Cameron Gelman, my good friend, he really does like to dive into the characters, like in each individual character, which is like admirable and amazing. And I've always, really like forced myself to do that. But then like with a character like this, with a character like Mike, it just seems so funny and just like, light and airy kind of, that I just kind of threw up everything on the wall. So yeah, again, it varies from person to person, but like specifically for the Stargirl audition, yeah, I going into it, I knew nothing about it. So I just was literally like, hey, let's just see what happens. Like I'll just put everything out there.
Well, clearly it has paid off because you do a fantastic job on this show. And you mentioned improv. I want to talk about that because a lot of actors sometimes come from like a theater background, improv background, and so on. You just mentioned it obviously helped you with this particular role, but do you have an affinity for one over the other when it comes to creativity, or you just like to create period when it comes to you and what you're doing in your life?
I I think I honestly just like to create, period. It the thing about acting and the entertainment industry or anything creative in general is that they're all rabbit holes to different things. Like it's great when you see people that, start off with comedy and, like you're watching them like, do one of the best dramatic scenes you've ever seen in your life. Cause like that's happened, like people that I've grown up with and, actors that are amazing that mentally I can find into, oh, I've only seen this person do comedy, or I've only seen this person do improv, or this, that, and the other, and they just come out and surprise you with this new depth that you didn't even know existed in them, right? And that's the beauty of acting and creativeness, is because when you're creative to a certain extent, um, everything is full of opportunity, right? Like I can apply my improvisation and everything like that just as easily to comedy as I can to drama. That if you gave me a bracket of like, hey, here's this scene in like a hospital or whatever the hell, like I could probably draft up a quick scene in my head and kind of like and go with it. And again, like I said, everything ties into one another, and that's why I've always loved writing. Like I'm a writer, I'm an avid writer. I write just a lot. And I've always been trying to get my projects made and stuff like that. And I think honestly, one of the driving forces to me actually getting into writing more was honestly Luke, because Luke would always complain, the complainer that he is. He's always like, can't wait for the phone to ring. You got to make it ring yourself. Because he's always like, don't let anyone, don't, put your career in other people's hands, which was always right, which is always, which is honestly correct. And like, that's why I started creating for myself. And I started writing, like when I started acting, honestly. So they kind of both went hand in hand. But recently, like in the last like probably 3 years, I've been taking it really serious and just like being really regimented about it and forcing myself to write. And that's the best thing I've ever done for myself. So like, yeah, I think that like it definitely doesn't confine me, like coming from like an improv comedy like background. With a role like this, it helps a lot. It's great. And like the chops and the timing, that's always something that's good. And actually there's something funny actually happened when I first went out to LA when I was like really young. I remember going to my first improv class, and then one of my teachers, who actually I became really close with after this, which is kind of funny. He was like, "You have no comedic timing at all. You should stop acting." And then I was like, okay, I was young and I didn't like know what I was doing, and I was like, I just got into improv and stuff like that, and that like I'm such like a say that I can't do it person, I'll just do it better, that I like literally just like kept like I kept going to classes, I kept doing da, 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 da. And there was a certain point where I just completely abandoned all my classes. And then there was like this second wave of creativity where it's like, I want to do everything on my own. I want to find out everything on my own. Like my next path of being creatively enlightened is just traveling and being with my friends and writing about my experiences, keeping a journal, doing stuff like that. So the creativeness just kind of comes in waves, and you can start from anywhere. And you look at these artists like Adam Sandler and these people that are the funniest people on earth, and they put out stuff like Uncut Gems and Punch Drunk Love. Like if you were looking at some of Sandler's projects that he's done, and then you look at stuff like that, like Punch Drunk Love, you're like, this is not the same person. But it's really interesting just seeing all the different range and stuff that an actor can do. So yeah, it's just overall, I think I'm just a genuinely just creative person. Like I'm down for anything, always. Like I as you can see, I play guitar. I've been playing piano my whole life. Just whatever I can kind of funnel my mental state into creatively, I tend to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Sandler. I remember when Uncut Gems came out, a lot of people thought it was a joke. Like they're like, is he kidding with this? Like, is this another, Billy Madison type,
Exactly. Yeah,
a
and like
joke, especially when they started talking about him potentially getting an Oscar, people lost their minds.
I was never surprised by that because
No.
I grew up watching Paul Thomas Anderson's movies, right? So like when you think about that and like Punch Drunk Love, and like that's in my opinion the best Sandler performance ever is Punch Drunk Love. You've probably watched it, but if you haven't, you should. And like I think that came out in 2012 actually. And he was nominated. I don't even think he was nominated for that, because like that was like the first time when Sandler was coming out like with like something that was really like gripping and artistic. And like again, no one took him seriously. Like he didn't even get nominated for that performance. Like if I had that performance like of a lifetime and didn't get nominated, I wouldn't care personally, because that I don't care about like that stuff. But still, like I was just shocked by that when I found out that he didn't even get nominated. And then when Uncut Gems came out, in all these years after his Netflix deal, and just churning out these comedies again, like everyone just kind of like pushed that further and further away. So it was funny that when he just came in with Uncut Gems. But yeah, like that just really goes to show that, like, honestly, a lot of times the funniest people are also just the most talented. Just just coming to, if you can make the audience laugh, you can make the audience cry just as easily, in my opinion. Because you look at like how to manipulate an audience does not just confine to comedy, how to manipulate an audience emotions, this and that, can branch out everywhere. So yeah, that's why some of the comedic actors are just some of the most talented actors overall.
Yeah, 100%. And it's again funny, the Netflix deal. People were like, "Well, he found a place where he can create all his dumb projects," but I don't feel that way. I think he's hilarious and great actor as well, and that's fantastic that he's one of many that you look up to. One last question here as we wrap. Everybody has their actor's journey, which I love to ask because it's so different for everybody. And you mentioned early on that you were working on a film and then did some other things, and then Stargirl came about. But at what point in your career, Trae, did you know that this was something that you were going to be doing permanently for the rest of your life? What was it that clicked for you that made you go, okay, this is it?
Number one, I always grew up in a film centric household. If that makes any sense. My father always exposed me to amazing films my whole life. And I consider myself a romanticized person. Like I growing up with movies that early in your life, like I grew up with Wes Anderson, Sophia Coppola, Paul Thomas Anderson, Alexander Payne, like everyone. And Noah Baumbach, like it really was just seeped into my brain at such like an early stage in my life. And I don't even know, a lot of people are like, I grew up with films, this, blah, blah, blah. But also, I think it just also comes down to how you're wired, Like I can't, I can't, and I, even from a young age, I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else, because my father, coming from, an immigrant family, just, like the Italian Americans, like, this is the way you do stuff, get a union job, like, be a postman or a garbage worker or whatever. And, like, that's kind of like how everyone in my family always lived their lives. Work, work, work. When you're 60, retire, and, live out the rest of your days. But, the idea of just like conforming to any of that always just like upset me, like, literally. I hated like seeing my father always work and not have any time off and stuff like that. And, I kind of, I guess, saw movies as like an escape, from an early age. And I think that, even relatively recently, like, I would say, like, in the last like 5 years, when I realized that I couldn't live without it, is when I realized how much emotional power films and writing and my acting had over me. Like, I was visibly and physically and creatively not okay, like, when I wasn't working, or when I wasn't watching movies, or when I wasn't engaging creatively. And like, that's the thing. And it has come in conflict with my school and my this and that and blah blah blah. And it's just always been kind of something that I needed to do. Like, it's like an addiction. It's like something that, it's like a tick. So it really is something that, no, I never see myself stopping, because, when you're writing or acting, your job is essentially to observe life, and then funnel it through, a form of art, which is the best job in the world, in my opinion, because getting paid to show other people how you look at life, that's A, the easiest job in the world, and B, the hardest job in the world. So it's challenging and fun and amazing. And I literally, again, couldn't live without it, because you don't realize how therapeutic it is at the same time. It's terrific. And, like, writing and even keeping a journal, and just like, a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't just like write freely, and that has always helped me. And, I've always had a few comfort films that I go back to, but like a few films I literally have to watch like every so often, just like to keep myself going. And it's, it can get lonely, and it can get isolated, and it can get, really, really, I don't even want to say tough, but, sometimes tough. It's a lonely life for a lot of people. And, but again, couldn't have it any other way. I've always been really drawn to, I guess, funneling all my emotions and everything like that into a piece of art. So yeah, that's really it.
Very beautifully put. Fantastic. Thank you, Trae. And again, we are talking with Trae Romano, who can currently be seen in Stargirl on the CW. We are in season 2 right now. He plays Mike Dugan. He does an amazing job in this. And also check him out on IMDb. He has a lot of other great projects out there. He's got music. Real quick, is your music available to the public to listen to and to stream and download, or are you working on that?
No, but funny you should ask, because Cameron Gelman and I, who stars in the show, as well as Rick, we've been playing guitar, for a long time. And just like this last season, we started playing together. And actually, this season we're gonna start a band. So we'll follow that with great interest. We'll see what happens there. But as of right now, no, I've never released any music. I'm self-taught. I've been playing for 7 years. And I just, I would love to learn music theory and stuff like that. But really, it's just that I've just literally burned with I burned into my mind what I love playing. And, that's pretty much it at the moment. I don't think it would really creatively like drive me to release anything at the moment. But hey, maybe one day it will. You never know.
There you have it. Trae Romano, thank you for joining us today on the Brett Allan Show, a pop culture podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks so much, man. Thanks for having me.